Good morning, Owen.
Good morning, Anthony.
It's morning for both of us, but it's a different day for you.
That's correct. It is Saturday here and Friday for you. So
That's
enjoy
right.
the international dateline.
So, fun fact, I don't know if you know this, I can get to you faster than I can get to the East Coast.
I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 9 hours direct from Honolulu to Sydney, and it's easy 12 to like New York or Boston or anything like that for us. So if I have the choice, and my brother lives in Sydney. So
that's all right. As long as you understand that there's a bit of a competition that goes on between the cities over here. So that
yeah. Trust me, I'm well aware. And so you guys, if memory serves me correctly, you're down Melbourne, right? Like Victoria.
Okay. Yeah, we're south of Sydney, and it's a usual thing that Melbourneites stir out the Sydney guys, and the Sydney guys also don't like the Melbourne guys, and nobody likes the Brisbaneites. So
yeah. And then the guys out in Perth are too busy shooting snakes to even care.
Yeah, that's another country. Don't worry about that.
Right on. How the one thing about Australia, right? Like I'm an island boy, right?
Yeah.
I live on an island, and Australia is an island, and so I look at the map and I'm like, oh, there's another island. And then every time I'm there, I'm always amazed at like how freaking huge Australia actually is.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much the same size as the continental USA. So
yeah,
it's just our weather. If you turn the US upside down, you pretty much got Australia's weather, except we don't really get the snow side of it. So
yeah.
But other than that, it's a pretty similar sort of size, and it's not that hard to transition to come over and visit us over here. It's not hard for us to go over to you guys. Most of the same things are there. Everybody understands what you speak, and like we get good reaction when we turn up with an Aussie accent in the States. It's usually the same when you turn up to Australia and with a US accent. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw a meme the other day that was like, it was some like mock advertorial where they were like, supporters of kangaroos are lobbying to have Australians drive on the right side of the road because the kangaroos are all confused about driving on the left side of the road.
Yeah.
All right. So how did, like everybody, I always joke, right? None of us are sitting in the sandbox at 9 years old going, I want to suck water out of homes and basements and that kind of stuff, right? We all end up here some way, shape, or form. So how'd you get started in property restoration?
I was doing some general cleaning while I was studying at university, and just to pay your way as you do as a break student.
Yep.
And I came across through default. I actually came across some water damage stuff, and the guys who were doing the job were the PM on that was kind enough to sort of talk to me about what we should charge, because we were going to do some of the work. And I'm working as a sort of contractor doing some general cleaning for not very much money in the middle of the night, working stupid hours and just to try and survive. And I see this sort of money, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I could make a living out of this. And sort of gradually found out a bit more about, because sort of with general cleaning, you sort of end up in the carpet cleaning world a little bit, and I've always been one to sort of want to know how something works, or what's really involved in the whole process, and understand when you have problems, why you're having that problem and all that sort of stuff. So I'm a bit wired that way. So I sort of went and learned a little bit about that. I was lucky enough to be one of the people that attended one of the first IICRC courses when they came out to Australia. I think with Tom Hill, which is showing my age a little bit, but and just gradually, I guess I evolved through the carpet cleaning side of things, and I did like a lot of other people who come up from the bottom. I just worked my way through training, and did pretty much over time. I've done pretty much every IICRC course you could do, and then I guess it was a natural evolution to go on to the RIA stuff. So, and I was lucky enough also to be exposed to that through Mr. Pete Consigli, who many of you will know, and
oh yeah,
he's become a personal friend and a mentor to me over many years. So it's been a privilege. So. Yeah, it's sort of how I sort of evolved through the industry in relation to that. I'm one of the few people who've not come via a lot of people in the industry here have been gone and worked for one of the larger groups and then got out on their own. I never did that. I built what I built from ground up without the benefit of all those things. So I've learned some of those lessons the hard way probably through my life, but. But at the end of the day, I think when you fall down and get back up again, you remember those lessons a lot better than somebody who's just told you something. So, yeah, a little bit of that story.
Yeah, and then tell us about Elements.
Okay, Element, we're just based in the state of Victoria, which is Melbourne, which is down south. We pretty much work right across the state. We're a single location, but we do also do a lot of stuff. We do a lot of technical stuff, possibly interstate and sometimes overseas as well, helping manage large claims. It's been sort of my it's a large loss sort of thing is my personal thing I enjoy. But we have a team of about 30 people that. And run around and do all the things that restorers do. We're mitigation only from
oh, cool.
From that point of view. So we don't get involved in the rebuild side of it, but that's another matter whether we should or shouldn't. But there's things to be said for both. But we have maintained a mitigation only perspective at this point in our trading career. So we've been going for just on 30 years. So,
wow, congratulations, man! That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, so we've been around a while. So, we've got a lot of residual business and goodwill in the industry. So it's a good way to be. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
So like inevitably, when folks like yourself are entrepreneurs, right? Like, and you fell into property restoration, and then some of us second guess that decision, and I feel like that's normal because this isn't easy. This is hard stuff. So why do you choose to continue to remain in the industry? What keeps your fire stoked and makes you passionate about staying here?
Look, I've spent a lot of time on. Some people don't know, I'm on the board here, but I'm also the chair of the Australian Association. I've always believed in giving back, and one of the things that I actually believe in is that I want to see a good industry for everybody, from the guy at the bottom to the guy in the middle to the guy at the top. I don't care where you're at. It needs to be a sustainable business. I like to personally, I like to promote decent standards in things, and that's good repairs, good quality repairs for the end user, which is the consumer. I like to see good work practices for the technicians and them getting paid a fair dollar for their work. I like to see even the insurers ultimately, this is a bit controversial in the US, but the insurers also getting a fair deal. They're not getting ripped either. So, at the end of the day, I think it's if you're able to create an environment that is less adversarial, I think and more where people are trying to work to common good goals, doesn't always happen. I know that the advocacy has been largely focused around a fair deal for the consumer, and the contractor, but it needs to be fair all the way around. So otherwise, we don't nobody wins. So
it
needs to be a win-win-win, really.
I dig that. So what like you talk to Frank up in Canada or any of the Canadian, RIA folks, and you hear there's some structural and functional differences about the business between the countries, right? Like from lead generation to how the work gets done. There's some nuance there. And I have to imagine that a similar amount of nuance exists between the US and Australia. So if I'm a US restorer and I'm going to go open business in Australia, what's different? Like, what do I need to know?
Okay, one of the things you would first need to know is that our insurers are far more regulated than they are in the States. So as a result, I was watching one of your earlier Meet the Board calls, and the conversation in that was around managed repair programs.
Yeah,
pretty much 90% of the work here, or 85 at least, is going through managed programs.
Wow, no kidding.
So most of the people doing contract, or like large contract or regular contract, are on program of some sort. There is stuff that the commercial world's probably not quite as much regulated, but domestic is almost all, and it is very, very painful, as many of your contractors over there find out at times, that they make it very, very hard to actually work with them if you're a private contractor not on a panel. So most things here are running either through largely running. Most people are running largely with on insurers panels, and people of substantial size. There is a little bit of TPA work, but not as much as is currently running in the US. And we have a lot more. Our builders, which is what you would call a general contractor, have to actually be licensed here. So you pretty much are in they don't have as much traction, but a lot of the insurers are also partnering with a lot of the larger builders to actually run, or larger GCs to run programs. So, yeah. So that's a bit of a structural difference. Legal wise, we've sort of gradually evolved. We're a little bit more. We're not quite as litigious as you guys, but we're increasingly becoming so, because I know a lot of our lawyers obviously watch what's going on in the US. So they've certainly evolved the industry a little bit over here. So that they're certainly pushing things along that regard. The other things that we have too is, we're quite involved at the moment. We have our own standard system, which is different to ANSI. We have an Australian standard we've been pushing for a long time, and we've gradually finally got to the point where we're starting to bring some of the industry standards across to being Australian standards, which then have more of a regulatory effect over here.
Interesting. Okay.
So one of the arguments that we've run into with dodgy contractors over here over time has been, oh, that's an American standard, it doesn't apply. If you go to court, it's not the case. It does apply because it's industry best practice. But when it actually becomes an Australian standard here, has far more legal weight. So
got it.
We've finally got that whole thing happening after probably 10 or more years of hard work to knock on the right doors and get all the ducks in a row. But we're getting there. So
right on. Do you have public adjusters? Like, is that a thing in Australia?
We do have a couple of public adjusters. We more have what we would call advocates.
Okay.
Pretty much the same thing. They're not necessarily always licensed adjusters, but they advocate on behalf of their clients with against the insurer.
Got it.
Which is it's not as certainly not on the scale that it operates in the US, but
okay.
They can be interesting people to deal with at times. So.
As PAs can be, for sure. Yep. Yeah. I was just curious because you talk about how the structure is with most of the lead generation being on the carrier side. I'm just wondering, typically there's an opposing force that drives balance in that system somewhere, right? If that's how it goes. So the call it the 15% of work that doesn't go through direct referrals from insurance carriers, or call it an Australian version of a TPA network. Yeah. How's the rest of it? Like, do Restore? I guess the question I'm trying to ask is like, is it worth advertising in Australia? Like, is there Google AdWords and paying plumbers and all of those types of lead gen sources, or is it don't even bother? It's not worth it. Just go, as Mark Davis would say, follow the golden rule, right? He who has the gold gets to decide what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. Look, there are people who follow that road probably more. There are some people who choose to have a completely adversarial anti-insurance road, and I'm not judging that as right, wrong, or otherwise. As long as the consumer's ultimately getting a fair deal, I'm cool with it. But they do some of those people do the Google AdWords bit. There are people who try and pick up a little bit of water extraction or things like that. Those sort of sub trades sometimes do get a bit out of that. The other thing that sort of advertising, for particularly for somebody doing smaller stuff, can also be around being picked up by somebody else to like a TPA or a builder doing something that's looking for somebody to do some work in an area. It can be advantageous in that space. But paying plumbers, that certainly hasn't been as much thing. There are some people who market to other niches, like through the Strata World or the various other little subsets of things that become known in that space. But usually, once you become sort of involved in that space, the insurers will probably try and bring you under their wing a little bit, because it helps them just keep, holding on things. So it builds relationships with them too. So yes and no.
Got it.
Question.
So what do you see, like, specific to Australia? Because this is an interesting question for you. What do you see as the greatest challenge for restorers in Australia that they'll face in the next 5 years?
I see the greatest challenge for us being technology. I think it is going to become, our traditional ways of operating are going to change. Whether insurers end up going, it's a house of this size and it's got this level of contents and it's insured for this much, so therefore you've had this percentage of the house is affected, so therefore we're paying X dollars. Yeah. Which may get down to that sort of stuff, or it may get down to, well, someone's paid to go and do a 22nd century version of Matterport or similar scans through the house that identifies so many of the things, through AI picks up so many of the things that are damaged. And then, they base their settlement off something like that. There's going to be a lot of this stuff is going to change. I think we've also got a big difference in the Australian market in that we don't use Xactimate or similar. So we are still time and materials. So that has some flaws and against to it, absolutely. I think the process of Xactimate looking from the outside in is burdensome and clunky.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, you've got to go on 500 line items and we've had the conversations with insurers here, should we go down this road? Well, look, sure, if you want to spend triple your admin budget and triple our admin budget because you're going to pay for it. At the end of the day, what you're losing where we might charge you an extra couple of hours is a drop in the ocean compared to what you're you're going to do on the other side of it, and vice versa, because there's times where the contractor doesn't pick up everything as well, just as the same as there is with Xactimate anyway.
Yep.
But, and ends up having to do stuff. So, you know, it's I think that whole system, that way of operating, and the time and materials way of operating is going to probably, insurers want more. Insurers want a cookie cutter approach. They want to go, we've got this loss. And it comes a lot from their automotive things. We're replacing these parts, and we're going to do this. That's a lot of where we're at with the building scenario, and I think it's going to continue to go down that road. And technology is only going to drive it further and enable it. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know, like through one lens, there's an AI pathway for us with Xactimate, right? Because this correlates to this line item, right?
Yep.
And you know, absent of that, on a time and materials basis, you know, I'm sure you could use AI to solve for equipment, but without production rates and a database of production rates, it gets problematic to solve for just about anything else. And that's what Xactimate provides, is a list of production rates and suggested or starting prices. Don't get me started on that. You know, I'm
down that rabbit hole. I've been around long enough not to.
Yeah, you just like, that's an angry dark demon in the corner we don't touch. But it'd be interesting, because I know, you know, talking with my brother, who's he's a programmer in Australia. You know, like Australia is very technologically advanced in a lot of the same ways that the United States is with AI and everything. And so absent that structure, I'm curious how the Australians are going to use AI and geospatial to solve for some of these bigger problems, absent a standardized platform like Xactimate.
Well, and that is one of the challenges for it, because you're quite right. I've looked at it from a point of view of, you know, you do need to actually understand the bits that go into the mix to actually be able to make it for a computer to be able to make an informed decision. But the other side of that, which may or may not be a scary thing, is where they just take big data and go, we've got a house that's X number of square feet or square meters. It's this much damage. It's this type of loss. Generically, it should be within this price range.
Yeah.
They may start to play those sort of games, because at the end of the day, and just say to the homeowner, this is what our data tells us is going on. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
We're paying that much money. Like it, lump it. We don't care. There you go. There's your money. It's in your bank tomorrow.
Yeah. All this does is confirm my theory that where we should be focused as restorers is on field data capture. So then that way you're armed with every bit of information you can to suggest how the algorithm doesn't apply in this given circumstance.
Correct.
You know, this is Brazilian cherry floors. This is this is that. That's why. You know, we cut into the drywall and we found out it's not one layer, but two. You know, all of those things that AI really can't solve for, and only the expert with boots on the ground can, for sure.
Yeah. And one thing that we are probably a little more, a little better protected than you guys in the States have been, is our government is and does on a regular basis slap the insurers around the head for bad behaviour. So they're a little bit more subject to public scrutiny, which I think, and being held to account, which I think is a good countervailing force and very necessary. The other thing that we're seeing here too that is a big move is that our government, through the climate scenario, is also looking at restoring more materials, and that we've got triple bottom lines, and that's going to drive a lot of different behaviour from the insurers as well, because they're required by law as of next year to report on the amount of materials going to landfill and all this sort of stuff in mid-process.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's actually going to be a really big change for some of the insurers, because there's people still going on the let's rip everything out and throw it in the bin. whereas actually people who can actually restore, which they have to some extent decimated by cheap materials and lots of things that are being thrown out. There's a definite move back towards trying to not be as wasteful, and we've also been involved with the association in trying to build in some of the flood-prone areas, in looking at how we can build more resilient buildings. In the sense of things that are easy to clean up when they're flooded, and keep the people living in the town rather than they're having to be out in temporary accommodation for 2 years or whatever. And I know you guys in Hawaii there have just been through terrible bushfires, but we went through a similar process to here after we had our, a couple of, as you're aware, we've had some serious bushfires too, or wildfires as you call. We've been through a similar process in trying to build buildings if we're going to build in those areas, building them in a manner that is more able to withstand that sort of attack, and you've got much more hope of actually being able to survive personally, and the buildings actually survive in the community, in the environment. So I think that sort of stuff is also where the restoration industry has a lot, and your data capture falls right into this. Was where we actually have a lot to offer as a different avenue to our business. It's not just fixing things up after it, but we actually know what fails. And a lot of our building regulators don't know their head from their backside in relation to that. And I think as an industry we have a lot to give in that space, and understanding how to build things better, how to build things in a more resilient fashion. It is certainly, I think, our industry as a global. We have massive knowledge about that side of stuff, and I think that'll be one of our growth areas in years moving forward.
Right on. That's interesting. I love the nuance of all of that.
Yeah.
Why'd you join the board?
Why did I join the board? I joined the Australian board because I've been involved with RIA since IICRC days, but I joined the board because, firstly, I'm being the chair in Australia. I very much am a believer that we need to be tied into the global side of things, and it's basically my role is sort of I intermediate between the two, and we talk about things that are in our common interest, and we bring a different perspective, and I think that can sometimes be instructive. Sometimes it's we also learn from you guys. So I think that's a lot of what's involved. But basically, I'm involved with the board because I believe in giving back, and I believe in building a better industry. So awesome. And that want to leave the industry a bit better than when I started. So
I hear that, man.
Yeah.
So through take this down to RIA Australia for us, because I think this is a great question, just to bring awareness of what, that chapter, or I don't know, what do you guys call it? Is it its own organization, or? It is
actually its own organization. Yeah.
All right. So RIA Australia, what is RIA Australia doing locally to make the lives of Australian restorers better? What are your initiatives, and how are they different? I just have to imagine they're different.
Okay, so I'll probably do a little bit of background on us. In 2016, we'd had members for quite a few years, but we in conjunction with Chuck Owen and some other people, we decided we were going to have a go at making an Australian chapter. As a first point of call. So we got dispensation from the board to create a steering committee, and we basically built. Worked until they said, okay, you can have a chapter in Australia. We hit 100 members. We're now up to about 160
nice.
in Australia, and growing. And we basically, once we were at that sort of point, we decided, no, it's appropriate we become our own association, because we, at the end of the day, we have to, as you quite rightly just said there, what are we doing for Australians? Well, we need to be doing stuff for Australians. So,
yeah, absolutely.
If we're asking them to put their money in, we need to be spending that money on them. So we did that. A couple of conferences ago, one of the things that we decided that we would follow is your advocacy movement that you've had in the States.
Nice.
That was Mark Springer's article in that regard. Hit a nerve with me personally, and with some of the other key board members at the time, and we decided we would work to try and make that happen. So a few conferences ago, we run a conference in Australia. That's one of the things we do for our members. But we decided we would try and fundraise to get the advocacy movement going. We were able to raise over $100,000 from our members, and 2 years ago we started with an advocate. We were able to hire someone.
Okay.
So since we hired that person, we've had insurers at the table. We're talking with all major insurers. We're talking with government, both in terms of what's called circular economy over here, which is the green sort of side of things. We're talking with reconstruction authorities. We're talking with the building authorities. We're talking with a whole range of people that have input to our environment and our operating environment for our members. And we're working to generally get them to support our push for good standards. We're working on, Australia has a different training framework we certainly have IICRC training here, but we also have a certificate system that is specific to Australia. So we've got a course approved, but we're working on bringing it to market, because that has the effect of making restoration a trade in its own effect, which is a pretty cool thing. So yeah, we're doing a lot of things in those sorts of spaces, and a lot of things to be part of the conversation with government and with insurers at the higher levels, to let them know what's good practice and what's good behaviour, and try and get good outcomes for everybody. So
awesome. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of the same stuff, man.
Yeah, it is a lot of the same stuff. It has its own, like you said, it's got its own nuances. But, what Mark said about follow the gold. Well, we're talking to people who've got the gold, which is the government, and just trying to create a better environment and a legitimate picture for people, because lots of people get out and try and sell an agenda for their own personal financial. We're not taking that road. We're talking on behalf of an industry, and there's some stuff even in academia where we're starting to get involved in their conversations around some of these topics. So it's a big. There's a lot of work going on in the background to try and bring some of this stuff to market and make people aware of just how far this whole thing can go for all of them, and give them fantastic opportunities moving forward. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I know you gave a nod to Pete Consigli, but who have you been your mentors or other sources of inspiration as you've grown within the industry?
I've been lucky enough to meet many of the founding fathers and a lot of those sort of guys, and it was a lifelong dream for me to become a CR. Certainly for a long time it was a goal, and I was lucky enough to get to that point. just meeting some of these people and seeing what they've achieved in their life. Like you were talking with, I watched the one with Mark before about having founded being one of the people to help found Balfour in the state, and those sort of stories are been lucky enough to meet several people like that over my journey, and just see where that's taken them in their lives, and the approach that they've taken to things. And I think associating with those sort of people and listening to those stories only does good things for you personally, and I think seeing what a bigger picture in the world is a good thing. Gets you away from the little focus on the problem that somebody just threw on your desk today, and look at what's the big picture of this whole claim, what's the big picture of this whole industry, and we do have a lot of ability to influence people's lives in the positive, and I think that's a big part of what we do. So,
right on.
Yeah.
So, if you had to start over,
yep,
business goes away tomorrow, and
yep,
you got $100,000 in a checking account,
yep,
how would you deploy the capital? Where would you spend the money to start over?
I think personally, I would go down the road of educating myself as much as I could.
Okay.
If I was starting to do that, and I mean, if I started today and went down that road, that'd be a different story to what if you're asking me when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking in the industry, I would be trying to be very good at something, become an expert in something, would be my take on it, because I think being able to be a specialist in certain areas has a lot of ability to open doors for you, and gives you a bit of a unique thing, even if you're doing 30 other things.
Mm-hmm.
But being the person that you got this problem, you need to talk to them.
Yeah,
it does open doors, and it's, I think for a lot of people, and I'd also say find something that you enjoy, because that's another part of it. There's no point. We've all got our little parts of the industry that we like, and I think doing things that you enjoy and are really good at, that's probably one of the best things. Even, I mean, you can even take that to the level of some of the guys who are running the really big things. They love the business side of it. That's their thing. So,
what's yours?
What's mine?
Yeah,
I love being thrown into huge messes and sorting them out.
So give me an example. Like, what's a huge mess that you walked into that you were just like, yes, this is it. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I've had things like 500,000 square foot shopping centres, metre of water through them. Multi-story buildings that are, wet top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Historic buildings I love. That's something that if I was really, you give me an old masonry building that has been heavily affected by water or fire, that they're really satisfying to restore, those projects. Same with some of the really classic old homes.
Mm-hmm.
It's that sort of thing, something that is complex, difficult, and it's not just a bit of concrete or a bit of timber that you're restoring. You're restoring something with some history, or even if you go on content side of things, sometimes you come across a historical artifact of some sort with a real story. I've done jobs where we've done hundreds of hours of work just to restore it because that was the right thing to do, not because we didn't care about it.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my favourite documentaries is I think Discovery did one on the fire at Windsor Castle, and there's these guys working on Windsor Castle, and you could see they didn't care a damn whether they were there for money. They were not there for money. That was their profession, and it was an honour to work on something like that.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. I totally understand that thing. It's, to me, that's my profession. That's what I've chosen to do in my career, and I might have fallen into it in the first place, but it's something that I genuinely love, and being able to actually restore something like that is, to me, they're the sort of jobs that people who are passionate about what they do will generally fall over to do, and not about money.
Yeah.
So, it's just that satisfaction.
I had this was very, very, very early in my career. It was Henry Ford's house in Dearborn, Michigan, had a steam pipe rupture above, and they had like a bowling alley in the basement of his house, and so it got all the hardwood on the lanes affected. And the question was, can we save this? Right. And, the answer on all that kind of stuff, especially a steam line, right? Like, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just all sorts of weird. And we were able to dry it, get it relaxed enough. Yeah, it did have to be refinished, but, there's something he said for like, this is the wood that Henry Ford threw stones down, like that's important and that's meaningful in a variety of different ways. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. It's those sort of things where you've been involved in a project where like you say, it's somebody historical, or it's something, and you're, even if you like you say, you have to do some repair to it, but it's still the genuine article.
Yeah,
that's where it's at. So I mean, I can only imagine the people have been working on Notre Dame recently.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. I mean, I'm lucky enough we've got laser technology, and we know what's been done with that space there. And it's just that sort of thing is just very, very special. And you're very privileged when you get to, even some of these old buildings, getting to go for a tour through them, which we sometimes do as part of, can be fascinating in of itself. It's really those sort of things are really, really interesting. So,
awesome. Right on. Well, we're just about out of time. We got a few more minutes. Is there anything you'd like to share to close us out? What's the thing you can't stop thinking about?
I think the thing to me for contractors is that I think very much I would encourage people to start to look at the technology side of things, because it is going to impact them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is they specify everything in a job, or whether it's you've got data to be able to defend your position and get adversarial with them, whatever. But at the end of the day, you need to understand that is coming. And you need to understand that even the people that you might get on really well with in an insurer or whatever, their jobs are at risk, because insurers ultimately just want the customer to pay a premium and pay it when there's a claim. The less costs that they've got in the middle there, the better from their point of view, because it's just straight to their bottom line. And they will go down some of these roads. They'll get some wrong for sure, and they'll end up in what they'll have to pay and whatever. But at the end of the day, they are going to go down those roads. And it is going to make a material impact on every one of our businesses. And you need to choose the road you're going to go down, and how you're going to work with it. But because at the end of the day, we all have to have a sustainable business for ourselves, or alternatively, you find other things within your business that you can market alternately. I thought one of the other comments was around limiting your exposure to certain things. That may be another strategy that we all take. So but I would certainly encourage people to consider that in their forward planning. I think it's absolutely it's a threat and an opportunity. It's not necessarily all threat or bad, but it does have consequences. So.
Yeah. Are you going to make it to Dallas this year?
I am going to make it to Dallas this year. Yes.
What's that? 15 hours for you?
17.
17.
17-hour flight.
And I bitch about having to go to Boston.
Yeah. No, that's the longest flight I reckon. I've done that flight before. It is the longest flight I've ever done. But
Oh man,
that's one plane, one flight. But the good thing is it's door to door. So
yeah.
17 straight from Dallas to Melbourne. So
wow. Well, I will see you there, my friend. And thank you so much for, waking up early on a Saturday and taking the time to talk story. I know everybody in our community appreciates everything that you're doing, not just in Australia, but also for us here in the United States. And, as somebody who does have to travel far, I understand how difficult that is. And from me to you, I'm just super thankful that you make all the things that you can make happen. That's really awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in Dallas.
Enjoy. See you, Anthony.
Right on. Take care.
Bye.